The Alzheimer Society of Saskatchewan is trying to make life a little bit easier for people like Roxanne. It's launched a project to make the province more dementia-friendly, and recently it held focus groups with people with dementia as well as their family members to find out how to move forward. Abby Wolfe helped lead those groups, and she's in our studio. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
When Roxanne was talking about shaming, you were nodding. What was it about that made you nod?
Well, I think what she mentioned about being embarrassed and feeling that people didn't understand her diagnosis and what she was experiencing is something that came up in the focus groups over and over again. And really what, we heard from people was that they did feel there was stigma, but even more so, it was difficult for them to open up about their diagnosis and to want to talk about that because they weren't exactly sure how people were going to react. And especially, like Roxanne mentioned, she had frontotemporal dementia.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, people associate just memory loss with Alzheimer's disease.
Not behavioral changes.
Yeah, and for somebody to experience something like the mood swings, the personality changes, even, one of the warning signs is changes in language and communication skills. So for somebody that's experiencing those types of things and different types of dementia, it can be even more difficult to get people to understand that these are because of changes in their brain. These are symptoms of dementia, and it's because of dementia that they're experiencing this.
Is there a story or a person that stands out from your focus groups?
Yeah, there's one quote that's just stuck with me ever since we did these, and it was a gentleman that shared with us what he experienced with his diagnosis. And what he said is, for people that are diagnosed with cancer, you feel like a support group comes around you. They rally around you. They want to support you, and they see you as a fighter in this, against this diagnosis. But when he was first diagnosed with dementia, he found that people did the opposite. They scattered, and he was experiencing isolation. He was feeling very alone. He was feeling very misunderstood. And that was a very difficult thing to hear.
Yeah, to be dealing with that on your own. Yeah, it sounds awful.
Well, and it made me think, too, about how social isolation is such a big deal with this. It's not only for the person with dementia that's at risk of that, and partially because some of the warning signs can be, loss of initiative, wanting to withdraw. And so that's big for the person with dementia, but also for the care partner, where their world becomes, caring for the person with dementia, supporting them.
Did you talk about that a lot too? Because I know Roxanne talked about how, things have changed with her husband. He's taking classes now on how to care for her. He can't work. He has to be with her. He was tracking her with GPS in case she got lost. Do you get into looking at that, about how it changes those primary relationships that people have?
Yeah. That was a second part of the focus groups, was actually doing a survey where we invited care partners to give us their experiences as well. And the quotes we got back from that also, they really just stick with you. And
like what?
We had some where, people said that as a care partner, they are missing out on their own relationships with friends. And, they talked about instances where they go into a building and, there might not necessarily be a family washroom where they can provide assistance if the person that they're supporting needs it. And just those situations that you don't necessarily realize until you hear them say.
So that's a very concrete thing. And I know you came up with 3 recommendations, so out of all of this. So what are the recommendations, and how do they get at some of those concrete things that we as a society can do?
Right. Yeah. The first one was about reducing stigma by increasing understanding. And so the concrete example there is we want people to know that there are 10 warning signs and that it's about more than just memory loss. And so we're trying to address that with a bit of a warning signs campaign around the ABCs of dementia. And ABCs being that it's about changes in abilities, behavior, and communication.
Roxanne goes a long way there talking about her experience.
Absolutely.
What else?
The other thing is about addressing physical environments to make them more dementia-friendly. And that's because we know that in a community there's a social fabric, but there's also those built environments. And things like navigation, how can we make that easier for people?
What's a practical example there?
I love to use this one because everybody can relate to it. Signage. And when we talk about signage, it's not just about where it's placed, like being placed in eye level and things like that, but making sure that it's actually understandable for a person that might be experiencing, problems with abstract thinking.
So odd symbols might not work.
Well, that's just it. Not using a highly stylized silhouette of a person to indicate which is the men's bathroom and which is the woman's. Making sure that it actually has maybe a toilet on that sign, or it says physically women's or men's. Okay. And those things that make it easier.
And the third one?
The third one is about increasing options for people with dementia to be involved and to participate, and making sure that they're meaningfully engaged.
Ask them what they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Abby, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Abby Wolfe is with the Alzheimer Society of Saskatchewan, and she joined us live in our Regina studio.